Howdy, this is Rob, speaking from the barn in an undisclosed location that may or may not be somewhere. Oh, I got the... Now you know you're dealing with camo when you can't even notice that your neck brace is on. Sorry guys. Oh, anyway, didn't mean to be gone for so long, but being a person that comes on and talks about speaking about issues and dealing with issues, I had issues and I just had to chill out about it. Sometimes you just have to kick back, go back, move back, think, write some stuff, and deal with it before you ever get out and try to start being useful again. Anyway, I just had some blood work come back, and I was hoping to understand something. It didn't, so there went my expectations. Remember I talked about expectations is nothing more than a predetermined and pre-prophesized resentment. So there I went. I talked to you also about letting your own self down. So there you go. I let my own self down and I had my own resentment against me. So anyway, that's none of your business. So let's talk about what I came here today. And it's to talk about, I think, what is the most angry I ever made someone at me was because I talked to them about the concept of triggering. Not just triggering, but sort of PTSD type triggering. Has anyone ever had something happen to them and in the background music was playing, you know, the mission bell was playing, and from that instant on you could never undo how the feeling that you had from that situation and the music that was playing in the background solidified, and every time you hear that music you go back and relive the same old thing. Now it could be a good old thing, you know, that's wonderful if you have that, but so much I hear it's the bad old things. It's the things of old behaviors that got us into trouble. The music was in the background, and then we keep going back to the same old music, the same old vomit. Well, since I'm a mathematical person, and I look at things through the concept of frequency, you know, the movement of energy. We're energy, our brains operate at a frequency, so if you can sort of work with the brain. You know, think of the old drum beats. Drum beats. You get in the drum beats and you just go somewhere else. You didn't take a drug. All you did was exploit the things that are built into you. You know, the wonderful creation that we are. We're frequency creatures. When I teach music, and when I can get a student anyway, and one of the first things I try to explain to them and their parents is we're frequency creatures. We're creatures built on frequency. We live through 24-hour cycles. We live through age. We live through childbearing years. We live through monthly cycles. We live through school cycles for our children. Everything is about cycles. Well, guess what, guys? Music is no different. Music has been used since we've had the ability to have hi-fi and recorded music, where music could not only be done at one spot, but rebroadcast. And that's actually the magic of media. And I've got something else I want to talk about that later. But like I was saying, I've seen the role of going back to your own vomit with music over and over and over. I've done it. I've seen people just become angry, become frustrated because they go back and listen to an old song. Just an old song. Well, the individual that I was dealing with, he was fairly along in what you'd call the endeavors of life, getting things right. But because I'd been working on that for a long time, and I did have to go back and change my sensibility of what I associated, the things that I let into my portholes. See, that's a whole important thing that we have. We have these portals. We have these nostrils. Yeah, we know people used to snort stuff up in there. That's a portal. That's a portal. Then we got our eyes. That's a portal. We got our ears. That's a portal. And we got our skin. So we have all these portals. And all these portals can bring up all those old feelings. And unfortunately, a lot of times, it's the old hurts. It's the things that you get comfortable with. So all in the world I was trying to do was point out my concern for you, my brother, is that you're going back to these old musical things that were associated with the sex, drugs, and rock and roll era of life. And that seemed to be something that was so bad. I'm still living with the fallout of that today. But when we constantly go back to the old triggers, how in the world can we move forward and replace the old hurts and the old behaviors with something positive, with something new, with something that is uplifting? I've seen personality change with music. Add a little alcohol to it, a little something else to it, and then you end up with all the old behaviors that you've been running from a long time. And to deny that that is a negative thing to bring into your life is to continue lying to yourself about, oh, I want to change. Now, a lot of what I've talked about is depression. I've talked about depression, oppression, trying to get out from under family. But I know from the hard way of living it that the music that I've listened to, the things I've heard in the background, take me back to these old destructive ideas, these old destructive situations. Now, this is not the only, this is one in a series that I'm going to be doing that talks about music, that talks about behavior, and talks about trying to replace old things, get these old things out, bring something new in, because when you're triggered, especially in the areas of depression, it is a self-fulfilling, circular type of behavior. You do one thing and it just multiplies and you spiral. You know, go read your book and you talk and you hear about the spiraling and the things that trigger this. So all I'm trying to do is help you to get away from the old triggers and to move into some new ground. But I realize this is one of the most resistant areas that I've ever run into, and that's the old music. And I keep seeing people go back to their old music, and I keep seeing the spirals into depression, neglect, and moving into some kind of childhood, second childhood behavior. Anyway, that's what I've seen. Now, how can I prove any of this? Well, I can prove it through psychology and through Hollywood, through the movies. And that's really what's very interesting. I'll say that for the next video because it's just too long. Can't do enough in the 15 minutes that I'm trying to deal with. I guess on this one, what I wanted to talk about is the concept of just triggering. We live in a world where words, actions, symbols cause people to go to these abnormal places of emotion. The reason Spock was one of my heroes, you know, like Spock from Star Trek, is because he had to deal with controlling his emotion. He was at least half human. And I think maybe I'm there, maybe half. So I have to work at the control. So if you're at least half human, you have to work at controlling and dealing with your shit. You know, your own circumstance. So we have all these things out here that will trigger us. We have all this old music that takes us back to the pain that we were dealing with. The pain that we were dealing with. I've written a lot of old love songs and all kind of songs about emotion. But I grew up with hearing Hank Williams and those kind of people. That's the music I grew up with. It was wonderful. 4 years old, 3.5, that's as far back as I can remember. And I still remember those old, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful songs. And I call a lot of them the Tear in Your Beer song. There was a time when if I couldn't cry, I couldn't get the emotion out, what I would do is get me a 6-pack and put on some Patsy Cline. If Patsy Cline couldn't tear your heart out and get all that old anger and all that old emotion out, then there's just not a whole lot that I can say about if you're human or not. Sometimes humans need to cry. Sometimes humans need to have emotion. But we can't be emotional all along, all the time, every 5 minutes, every nanosecond of the day, and actually accomplish anything. I wrote a song about this very, very situation, and what I said was, sometimes I just need to cry all night long, so pour me an ocean, I'll sing you a song. Because on occasion, you just need to cry all night long. Get all the stuff that's clouding your mind out. Get all the old hurts out. Get out and reassess and renew and get back to something that's a little more healthy. And music is just one of those places where it triggers. It takes you back. It puts you in places. Smell's another one. So if you have music and smell going on, then it's reinforcement. So what I'm talking about really is just the psychology of reinforcement, behavioral reinforcement. So if we can break the cycle, then we have the option, the opportunity to actually break the behavior. I'm talking about the depressive behavior, the negative behavior. I'm still working on it. That's why I didn't do videos for the last couple of weeks. It's just been hard to reconcile with what I'm going on into, but I still want to get something out that makes sense. Hopefully this will. So, music, frequency. Our brain has a frequency. We can actually go in and measure the cyclic frequency of our brain, and if you can see these measurements, you sort of know where the individual is in their awakeness or their sedateness or their wherever they may be in their psyche. But we can actually see this. So it's not very far to think that we can actually use sound and use music to enhance and affect this type of behavior. So this is what I'm going to be talking about. I'm trying to combine two things. It's reassess your behavior, go back and try to put something new into it. Music and sound is important, so we have to be careful what we see as bad, what we see as good, and really think about how our music affects us. If something takes you back to something that's depressive and takes you back to a bad thing in your childhood, dad's beating mom, whatever, then don't go back and listen to that old music. But I've seen people actually do that, and they go back to that old depressive behavior. So I guess the next video will be more about the story, why I ran into this, why I know something about it. Remember, I don't want to talk about all this crap, but it's necessary because I want you to realize that if you're having trouble, there are ways and ways to go around it and deal with the trouble. Anyway, hallelujah. I'll tell the story because I'm at like 14 and something minutes and I got to stop this.